Splat. So, in case you guys just didn't even look at the thumbnail, this is it. We're finally doing it. My personal holy grail. This is the infamous Mclaren F1 GTR. But as we get further into the kit, we find out it's not actually a GTR. What we really have here is some bastardized crossbreed of the GTR and the Le Mans car. As the Le Mans car, a lot of them, once they were retired from racing, they were converted to being street legal and then sold to the public. So what I'm really thinking was going on here is that Fujimi really had no idea what they were doing. As you can see in the background there is a lot of parts in this kit. And I really do mean a lot, especially for a curbside kit that has almost zero chassis detail. But a little bit more on that later. So what I'm quickly finding out is that none of these bags are actually sealed. Now that had me a bit worried, being that I had bought this kit secondhand. Now, I found just a little bit of relief when I realized that there were no staple holes or adhesive or anything. I don't think these were actually sealed. So moving on to the body here, we'll see that it is heavily braced and reinforced. That is because right here and right there is literally the only thing holding the nose of this thing to the body. Once we go in and start cutting all that out, this body gets real flimsy and fragile very quickly. Now, I will admit that I am a little bit impressed. There's almost zero mold lines on this. There is a little bit of ghosting where the molds met, just a few sink marks, but really nothing that catches my fingernail. This is a very clean cast. And the first thing that I noticed that this body is almost identical to the actual race car. The street going car only had 3 of these vents up here above the fender. This kit, however, has all 5 of them, a carryover from the longtail kit. Why Fujimi did this, I'm not really sure. It's not a big deal. They're actually molded closed. They're going to be really easy to fill and sand back and smooth out. Now on this sprue we have our doors and our NACA ducts. We get the big one here for the rear window and an itty bitty baby one that does all the brake duct cooling. Those fit right there. And oddly enough, they only gave us just this one. Also on this sprue we have our stupid, flimsy, terribly designed doors. We have the mirrors that go on those doors, and the little fender flare red things that fit right in here. Those should have been molded into the body. Why Fujimi did not do that, it keeps me up at night. It's why I drink so much. About 2 minutes ago I had mentioned that there is a lot of parts with this kit. There's actually not. There's just a lot of sprues with empty space on them. This one, for instance, has a whole lot of parts missing, and they're almost die cut like they came from the factory. Now earlier I mentioned that they only gave us just the one NACA duct, and I thought this piece right here was the missing one for the driver's side of the car. However, I was wrong. It's not a NACA duct that goes over there. We'll talk more about that later. Anywho, on this sprue, we got the headlight cowls, the front splitter, the front bonnet, the wiper blades, or wiper blade, singular, and 2 pieces we will not use. This sprue consists solely of the rear wing. We got the uprights right here, the actual spoiler thing itself, it's a 2-piece. Then we have the blades that go on the end to tie it all together. Dog, your toenails, they're clacking on the hardwood floors. Go lie down. Get in your bed. Good girl. You're so good. Now next up we have our main chassis pan, which surprised me. I had built the actual Mclaren F1, the real road car, a few years ago, I do not remember all these rivets actually being molded in. Can you guys see that? Those are all raised details. Moving on though, on this sprue we also have the fender wells, one singular seat. Now on around the corner here, we have the muffler. We got some vents that we will not be using. We'll just throw them away. These go in the A-pillar to reinforce the fender so the door will actually open and close. Now on this kit, if you open the doors, the back of the seat is visible. That's sad because it's got some pinholes and some sink marks. Now to finish off this sprue, we just have the front and rear tow hooks, or tow eyelets, the hoops, whatever you call those things. Now on the road car, this is where the 2 passenger seats would be. Being that this is not the road car, we're going to find a computer and a fire extinguisher. Other than that, we just have the provisions for the shifter and the handbrake. Now at the edge here, we have the entire dashboard. Now naturally, being a race car, it's going to be stripped down. There's not a lot of detail to that thing. Now, as you probably heard me mention once or twice, being a race car, this is going to be the panel that holds all the switches, a few extra gauges, and all that good stuff. Right here we have the shifter, the actual handbrake, an antenna. We just looked at the body. I don't remember seeing provisions for an antenna. Yeah, no antenna. Of course, we have the mesh that covers all the NACA ducts, more stuff that's going to get thrown away. Next to them, we have some extremely stripped down and simple door panels, the taillight buckets. This is the shield thing that goes around the exhaust. And finally, we have all the various components for the 10-point roll cage. Now that I'm looking at this, I think this might actually be the lever for the handbrake. Maybe. Now in this sprue, we get just a few parts for the very simple suspension, namely just the front rear coilovers. Now these are the parking brake calipers. Now these being shorter, they're going to be the coilovers for the front. Right next to them, we have both of our rear view mirrors. Now this big long piece is a carryover from the road car that just goes in the slats back here to simulate the mesh. Being a race car, we're not going to have any of that. We're just going to throw this piece in the trash. Now finally, we got the big long tie rod there that connects the spindle so the wheels turn in unison. Now looking at the flash on that coilover, I am glad none of this will ever be seen. I probably won't even waste my time to clean that up. Now moving on to more disappointment, this is all that we have for an engine for this thing. Now the rear windows, for whatever reason, they're molded closed. We're going to go in and open those up. Now the cam covers, they do have a bit of nice detail. Sad news is they're all washed out because everything is just molded in. Now moving on, we have the front and rear brake discs with amazing detail. Followed by the headlight buckets, we have all the various calipers. These are all molded separate because the discs do spin within them. Rounding off this sprue, we have the control arms for the front rear suspension, and then all the hinge pieces for the doors. Oh yeah, and the inserts for the rear view mirrors. So again, disappointment here, but I have a plan to make that look somewhat presentable. Moving on, we have the wheels and tires. Now, of course, being that this is a 90 supercar, they are going to be staggered. Now, the rear tires, if I remember right, they were a 315/45 profile. The sidewall was extremely tall. A lot of people made fun of it and said that they were like truck tires. Now, being a Fujimi kit, it's going to have some polycaps, and of course, they're going to give us a metal axle to just kind of ruin everything. Now, of course, I could paint it. It's not seen, but it's just the principle of the thing. Of course, I talked about the profile of the tires earlier, but again, being a race car, this is a slick. I'm going to try to find some street tires from my stash, but I don't think I'm going to have much luck. We'll see. Now, the three clear part bags, oddly enough, they're the only ones that were sealed. There is our staple. Now, I couldn't see what I was looking at here through the viewfinder, so I decided to open these up here so that we could all have a better look. These parts were extremely clear and were not picking up at all. What we have here, though, is the massive rear window, the two rear quarter windows, whatever they call those things, and the taillight lenses. As you could probably see on this roof, we got a giant windshield, we got the headlight covers, we have the side marker lenses for the front bumper, and of course the actual headlight lenses themselves. Also, we have the little tiny side markers and the passenger and driver side window. Now, being a road car, it's going to be the two-piece window with that bracing in there. The box art shows the real GTR window that is just one big piece of Lexan. Now, oddly enough, Fujimi's full-on race car, the long-tail kits, also have these two-piece windows with the bracing. Like they spent more time making sure the box art looked good instead of actually giving us the proper parts. Which is one of the reasons I don't like taking these out of the bags. Number one, I like to keep them in there to keep them protected, and of course I always struggle trying to put them back in. Now this kit is solely dedicated to just the race car. It's got the rear quarter panels with the vent holes, the oversized front headlight lenses, and of course them little bitty tiny ones, they're actually for fog lights. Now, being that we are not building the long tail, we're not going to use anything from that sprue. Now, Fujimi was always ahead of the game. If I remember right, they were the very first ones to give us masking for all the windows. Also in this bag, we have the decal sheet. Not a lot going on here. Very minimal branding, being that this is quote-unquote a road car. I would just like to say, though, this is the one thing Fujimi got right. For people like me who store all your extra kits in your garage, your basement, attic, wherever, thank you for giving us a sealed bag for the decals. Now finally, we move on to the instructions. On the front, we find just a little bit of history on the car. Below that, we have the paint callouts. Then further down, a bunch of Japanese writing that I unfortunately cannot read. Now luckily, we also got an inventory list. This is how I found out that I was not actually missing parts. They were omitted from the factory. So yeah, only one duct here. This side gets covered with a mesh screen. Oh, it gets stranger though, guys. On the road-going GTR and Le Mans car, it does not have that vent on the driver's side. In fact, when this video is over, go look at the thumbnail. That vent is not there. Now, once I figure out how this thing unfolds, so all the steps are in order, we are going to give this thing a quick look just to see what we're in for. Now, as always, I start at step one and just pan my way through. If you guys need to pause it to look at something closer, take a screenshot, whatever, this is for you. I'm going to apologize in advance. If this is kind of shaky, I'm sorry. I had the fan on behind me. Forgot what I stopped to point at here. Yeah, I don't remember. I do hope you guys are excited as I am for this kit. I've been sitting on it for about a year and a half, just slowly collecting parts, and it's finally time. Including the paint. Now don't worry, this paint is still wet. Once it dries, it lightens up quite a bit and matches the body color almost perfectly. Now, as per YouTube law, do not forget to subscribe, like, ring the doorbell, and comment. I actually do enjoy reading those.